What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. Ruthie Polinsky, Alex Shapiro, Clay Harbor here to break down the Bears draft weekend on this glorious Monday morning. The Bears added 8 players over the course of the weekend, headlined by Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, who was taken with the 10th pick in the 2025 NFL draft. We are going to rock through all of these picks, talk about it. Did we like it? What can this player add to this roster? Did this roster get better? Are there still concerns? We're going to talk about it all here on the Charter Podcast. Alex Shapiro, Clay Harbor, how are we feeling today?
Tired, boss. No, it's a crazy weekend. It's one of my favorite weekends on the NFL calendar. The Bears kept us busy, especially on day 3. What do they make? 3 trades, 8 picks, tons of new talent, tons of intriguing talent. After all that, I'm going golfing today. I'm going golfing, and I'm going to have
You earned it. You earned it. Yeah. Long time over there at Hallis Hall. I remember keep hearing the press conferences and always hear Alex Shapiro coming in with some good questions. I'm like, that's my guy there doing his work, still at Hallis Hall. I think he has a bet out there. But I'm doing great as well. Good weekend watching the draft, and I went to the Cubs game last night. Had a couple of brewskis watching the Cubs losing extras, but ready to get back and talk some Bears.
All right, Clay, you got to hit the steam room, gym. You'll be back and ready for the Big Pro Football Show later today. I know you will be. You're a trooper.
Absolutely. Cold plunge.
You're a trooper. Cold plunge. Do the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, let's start with the pick of the weekend.
Michigan.
For those who are just listening and not watching, Ruthie Polinsky is showing off her wonderful Michigan University hoodie. Wear maize, go blue.
University of Michigan. Thank you. The Polinsky household, it's, the Freed household. We are fired up. We are Michigan alum, watched a lot of Colston Loveland over the course of the last couple of years. Obviously was a huge part of that national championship run, and obviously just sort of being a fan from as an alum to now getting to cover him and, talk to him. I was on the Zoom with him after, the draft pick. This is a awesome pick for the Bears. This is someone, and I think Jeff King was the one that said it initially, sort of saying he embodies everything that we're trying to build here. Ben Johnson said a similar version of that on Saturday when he spoke after the draft. This is Idaho tough. This is someone who is going to bring grit, work ethic, no BS. I mean, this is just a football player who is going to do the dirty work and do anything he can to help this team win. And I love the pick. I think we'll dive into a ton about what this means for Cole Kmet. I personally sit on the side of this is a good thing for Cole Kmet. It's going to open up more opportunities for Cole Kmet. It's going to push Cole Kmet. It's going to be great for Cole Kmet. Alex Shapiro, your reaction to the pick on Thursday night?
Surprised, but not overly surprised, because, the way the draft played out, I think is, we had fun with mock drafts and could Genti fall? Could this player fall? Could XYZ fall? The top picks were the top picks, right? Yeah. Will Campbell was off the board early. Mason Graham off the board early. Ashton, the top players were there. So in a draft where everything you heard was small amount of top tier talent and a lot of really good players, Colston Loveland, was I a little bit surprised it wasn't Tyler Warren? Yes. But then when you hear about Colston Loveland, get to meet him a little bit, turn on the tape, I'll raise my hand and say the talking points of, he's just the better athlete, he's the better route runner in comparison to Tyler Warren. I don't think he gets enough credit for the run blocking. As I dug back in and looked a little bit harder, guy can run block. He can line up in line. He is not just a slot guy. And then when you hear he just fits what we want to do better, it makes sense. It makes sense. So given that the Will Campbells of the world, even Kelvin Banks, those guys We're all off the board. I think it's a really solid pick for the Bears at 10.
It was the best player available who also fits what you're trying to do,
right,
in a lot of ways. Clay, we talked about it a ton on our show with Jake Butt, obviously former Michigan tight end. We talked about that Tyler Warren versus Colston Loveland. This is going to get confusing, guys. Apparently, Colston Loveland's family calls him Cole. So let's all wrap our heads around that for a second. Colston Loveland's, who is a better fit for the Bears? We dove into that, and obviously, you guys predicted this.
Yeah. We thought after diving back into the tape and watching more and more that Loveland is just that Sam Laporta piece that Ben Johnson wanted. He is a great route runner. I mean, he runs routes like a wide receiver. Very uncommon for a tight end. You guys know, obviously, I played tight end in the NFL for 9 years. I've been in a lot of tight end rooms. I've seen a lot of tape on tight ends. I've seen them up close and personal. This guy is as good and athletic of a route runner as I've seen. As good as creating separation. Obviously, it's a little different NFL level, but this guy's played in the Big Ten. This guy's played on national championship teams. I played at the University of Michigan, where Ruthie Polinsky went with Jim Harbaugh. Watching last year, you see him in the slot, and you realize that he was playing through a shoulder injury. That's why I think he didn't do as much inline, but he has that ability to play inline if he's not hurt. So I think this makes him very multiple. Ben Johnson talks about making the same things look different and different things look the same. So now you come out, and I've reiterated this, you can be split out. It's like the Gronk and Hernandez. The defense sees two tight ends. They want to get an extra linebacker in the game because it's a two tight end set. Now you split these guys out, and who's going to guard Colston one-on-one? Is it a linebacker? Is it a safety? Who's guarding Cole? Linebacker or safety? You're going to have a mismatch. And just for the Tyler Warren versus Colston Loveland thing, here's my take on that. Obviously, athletically, I think Colston's a better fit. He's also 2 years younger, so he's got way more development to do.
That's huge. That's huge. No one's talking about that he just turned 21.
21 years old. He's still got mass to put on his body at 21. Like, he is not finished maturing. 2 years, when Tyler Warren was Colston Loveland's age, he caught 10 passes for 123 yards. Tyler Warren had the smallest wingspan at the combine, had the shortest arm length at the combine. Colston Loveland's a big, long player, higher catch radius. So to me, that tells me, you also have a better upside for blocking with the arm length. And then the other thing is people look at the numbers. And here's something I found fascinating, Ruthie. Last year, Michigan threw the whole season, yardage-wise, 1,678 passing yards. Colston Loveland had a higher percentage of his team's receiving yards than Tyler Warren actually did. When you're on a team that can't throw the ball, you don't have a good quarterback, you can't blame a guy for his numbers. You see him open multiple times. You see how he moves. Say all that to say this is a great pick. The guy can block, he can catch, he can run. I think he's going to be a true weapon.
Along those lines, Clay, somebody told me check out the Oregon game if you want to see like the Colston Loveland effect as a receiver. And it's really interesting from that point of this guy meant so much to that offense. The Oregon defense knows, the broadcasters know, everybody is circling Colston Loveland all game. He's going to be the guy. And Oregon did a very good job in a quarter and a half locking him up, denying him targets, playing sticky coverage. Michigan is trying to manufacture the ball in his hands with screens. They are all over it, snuffing it out. And then what happens towards the end of the second quarter? This guy just goes off like that. I mean, like, again, creating that separation that we heard. Jeff King, I believe it was Jeff King who said, reminded him of Todd Heap, which is high praise. Great tight end for the Ravens. It's a hell of a comp to put on a player. All of a sudden, you're seeing that wide receiver ability. You're seeing the catch ability, and truly like a light switch. All of a sudden, this guy has 100 yards and was essential, like running guys over, getting them into the gold zone, helping Michigan fight back in that game against one of the best teams in college football. And again, when all of the focus was on him, Oregon says, don't let Colston Loveland beat us. He still finds a way to get open and produce.
To that point, Alex, and that was really this case all year for him. I think with Michigan's offense and the way it looked, all the different quarterbacks they rotated in and out of there, this is someone who found production through adversity. And that, I think, is something that is really commendable for a player. Penn State, everyone, there were a lot of good players on that offense. They had a playoff run, like that was something that was Tyler Warren was, having a great season while the whole team was having a great season. Colston Loveland had a great season and a down year for Michigan. And I think that's something that people look at and say, wow, Jake Butt was telling us he's in double coverage every game because he was the big threat. Everyone's game planning against Colston Loveland. So now when he's, just one of the many weapons on the Bears, you're going to go put two guys on Colston Loveland. That's going to open things up for Cole Kmet or vice versa. So you're in these sort of, mismatches as the buzzword of this situation. Obviously, we know Ben Johnson likes to run 12 personnel. It really just all kind of came together for me when Colston told us that he had a conversation with Ben Johnson at Michigan's Pro Day. You remind me of Sam Laporta. Okay, done. He's a Bear. Bye. Like, see you on Thursday. It's like it makes a lot of sense. So it's exciting. I think people were surprised. I think there's also criticism about they don't need a tight end. They got a tight end. Like, this is what Ben Johnson wants to do. I think people are saying there's that fine line between drafting the best player available, drafting for needs. I think for Ben Johnson, this is both. So that's sort of where I sit on this pick in this moment. And it's going to be really interesting to sort of see how the two compare. They're going to get compared forever, Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren, and see how they compete. Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, Caleb Williams in Chicago. So there we go. We'll see. Let's move on, guys, on to day 2, the second and third rounds. The first pick that the Bears make at number 39, Luther Burden III, the wide receiver out of Mizzou, who believed he was a first-round pick. And he wanted to make sure everyone knew that. This is from another player that I have a connection with, St. Louis.
Oh, yeah. East St. Louis. Shout out East St. Louis.
I am not from East St. Louis. He had a really, really, really fascinating upbringing. I watched a feature that College Game Day did on him. He's someone who's giving back to his community, grew up in a really, really tough area, and is, giving back to the community that gave him, sort of this, that allowed him to have this career. So really, really interesting player. I want to know what you guys thought. When I saw wide receiver, I was like, okay, excuse? What was your reaction to the Bears taking a wide receiver with the 39th overall pick?
I'm going to be honest, in our digital chat, we were kind of wondering as he fell. And it's really interesting. Heading into free agency, it was like, who's going to be the slot receiver for the Bears this year? And then they signed Olamide Zaccheaus. Okay, you got your slot receiver. Then you draft Colston Loveland, who is also very good in the slot. Okay, you got 2 great options in the slot. Can probably tick that box. Oh, the Bears have added another guy who primarily played in the slot in college in Luther Burden. And Luther Burden, I think, was the pick, and the Bears kind of alluded to this just because he probably has first-round talent, and he was there at 39, right? So is he a need? No, but his grade is probably greater than where he was at, so you get that great value there. Now, the Bears were asked, hey, you guys got a lot of slot receivers now. What's up? You just drafted one at 10. And basically they said, we actually think Luther Burden can play outside in addition to inside. They think he has the skill set, and he did it in 2022 for the Tigers. And they said they believe that Burden was moved inside as a function of the Tigers offense. Basically, that's how they manufactured targets. He's really, really good with the ball in his hands. That's kind of his bread and butter. Get him the ball in space, and he can tear it up with the yak, right? So that's why they moved him inside. They thought that would help them and their offense overall. Bears say, hey, we can move him outside. Well, guess what? The Bears also have 2 phenomenal outside receivers in Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, obviously. So now the question is, we were talking so much about 12 personnel on Thursday. or the Bears are going to have to do a lot of 11 now to get all of their wide receivers on the field. So it's really interesting. It to me, it honestly felt like a luxury pick because, again, it wasn't a positional need, but the talent is there. And here's also the thing. He was clearly miffed that he was not a first-round pick. The key, and this was also a bit of a talking point, is managing Luther Burden to make sure he's happy. Because this is a guy who sees himself as a number one. He's going to be like the number 4 option on this team. So that's going to be the challenge, making sure that Luther Burden stays locked in. And I don't know Luther Burden that well. I don't know, but I'm just forecasting like there's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense all of a sudden with this Luther Burden pick. How is Ben Johnson going to manage everybody to make sure everybody stays happy? And obviously winning solves everything, right? If you're winning, everybody stays happy. But how are the Bears going to, keep everybody locked in and make sure that everybody gets their touches? And there's the talk of the no block, no rock. And he says, yeah, I'm on board with that. But now the challenge is going to be how do you distribute the ball to all of these playmakers? Because the Bears have so many playmakers now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see like the different personnel groupings. They're going to have so many different personnel. They're going to have like an 11 Luther, an 11 with Colston. Instead of Cole, they're going to have an 11 with Cole and an 11 with Olamide Zaccheaus. So it's going to keep defenses off balance. They're going to try to be figuring that out. So I think that's cool. I like the pick, obviously, because he did fall, and I think he's an athletic guy, good with the ball in his hands. And when you hear Ben Johnson talk about EPA per play, how important that is, and you look at the Detroit Lions offense, and you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, the things he was able to do, a lot of his passes he's catching at or behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of them are short, quick passes, these ball-controlled type passes. And what is Luther Burden good? The guy could probably play running back. You just watching his tape. Really good with the ball in his hand. You get him the ball, he's a weapon. He's shifty. He's stronger and more powerful than you think. So I think that's where the value is, because he, to me, doesn't seem like a receiver that is just a great route runner that's running a ton of these crispy routes. And I think that obviously Antoine Randall can help him develop into that. But right now, day one, you can scheme up a number of plays, 3 or 4 touches a game. You can run this guy in end arounds. You can run this guy on quick screens, and he's going to be a weapon in that regard. So I do like the pick there. And obviously the way the board fell, I think maybe they were looking to go a couple different directions, a couple guys off the board. Luther Burden still there. Let's fire away, take another weapon, fell into their laps. So I do like the pick as well.
All right. So the Bears were supposed to pick at 41. They trade back. And they don't draft again until 56. In the second round, the Bears select Ozzy Trapilo, the tackle out of Boston College. Obviously, 6'8", right? Like that stands out to you. You're like 6'8". Whoa, okay, love that. Then you sort of look into it. You learn he played majority on the right side in college. We've talked about sort of having tackle versatility. We know that Ryan Poles left the door open to moving Darnell Wright from the right side to the left side if need be. Obviously, I don't think that's necessarily ideal. Ben Johnson talked about at the end of the draft week saying, with Braxton out for the spring, there are going to be a lot of reps for Ozzy for him to try things out. So this is someone who's coming into a great situation with Dan Rochar, really good guards, really good center, really good right tackle to learn from, but also maybe an opportunity for him to get a lot of reps on the left side and see if he can learn it. I wonder what your guys' reactions were. My first thing is Dennis Allen might be a little mad. 3 offensive picks right off the board, 3 picks on the offense, but wondering, sort of what the defense's reaction was at this moment in time. But what was your reaction to the Ozzy Trapilo? It's a great name too. Great BC connection, as we know, the Ryan Poles connection. Ryan Poles' father and Ozzy's father, who he lost at a young age, they were teammates. I think there's a lot of cool connections here, but also seems like he's a really good player. It's just about where he fits. Alex?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So as you mentioned, primarily played on the right side, but he did play a little bit of left tackle. He also played at guard. And I asked him about this, like, hey, you moved all over. Just, I guess, what went into those switches? And basically, it comes down to his mentality. He says it's the exact same mentality he's going to have with the Bears. He just wants to get on the field as fast as possible. Whatever his path is to playing, that's what he's going to do. So BC, they need him inside when he was really young. All right, I'm playing inside. He moved to, he went to left tackle because he's huge and all this. Great. And then here, I want to make sure I get it right. So they had some injuries on the O-line. So they needed him on the left side. So they moved him to the left side. And then they had a new offensive line coach after that. And he wanted to change something. So basically, they had another guy because they had another player, Christian, and he only said Christian. I don't know his last name. I forgot to go back and look it up. But essentially, they had this other guy coming back to play right guard from injury. And the offensive line coach said, if we get you and Christian next to each other on the right side, like the two of you can be a force there together, and we can run all these runs behind you, and we can just take care of that side. And the two of you together could be really, really strong on that right side. So he's like, all right, coach. You need to move me to the right side. I'll go to the right side. So I love that mentality. I love that wherever you need me, whatever I've got to do to get on the field, I'll do it. So can he play left tackle? Maybe. I mean, this guy's super athletic. He's super tall. Does he need to work on the bend? Ryan Pohl said, yeah, he could probably work on the bend a little bit. But, it'll be really interesting to see how the Bears play around with Ozzy Trapilo, play around with Darnell Wright while Braxton Jones is getting healthy, because that's the other thing here. Braxton Jones is still rehabbing from that ankle. He is not expected to be back for the beginning of training camp. So there are going to be some opportunities for the Bears to play around at left tackle while Braxton Jones is still getting healthy. And I do think the door is like wide open for them to play around with a lot of things. But I mean, bottom line, Bears say he's a super intelligent player. He seems like a super team guy. He is huge. So very interesting prospect. And I think we all agreed like tackle was a spot where they could add talent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when it comes to the right and the left tackle thing, I think you can play both. I remember this guy out at the Senior Bowl, and he played left tackle as much as he played right tackle. Mm-hmm. And he's playing against the best of the best out there, and he was holding his own. That's when the guy really jumped off of me. I know he's not one of these big name tackles that there was a few of them. Obviously, we talked about Josh Simmons a lot. We talked about Kelvin Banks a lot. We even talked about Ariante Ursary a lot. Obviously, Will Campbell, Armand Membu. But went back and watched some Ozzy Trapilo. I really like this. For a 6'8" man to be able to do what he does, I've played with 6'8" players before. King Dunlap, a guy for Philly, played probably 10 years in the league, was a solid player. Ozzy Trapilo is an athlete. Like usually 6'8" guys, they're like rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. This guy's athletic. He can run zone. And at his scheme in college, at Boston College, they ran 65% run, 35% pass. So I think he's a little bit better in the run game. Mean, nasty guy, uses his hands well. He's already a really good technician for being in college. And you don't see that much. I think his sets are good. The one thing you did say, the bend, I think can get better. He gets leveraged sometimes. But overall, when I heard his name, I'm like, okay, who is this guy? I'm like, okay, I remember him from the Senior Bowl. He played a lot of right and left tackle. Go back to my Senior Bowl notes. What I said was a versatile player playing right and left tackle, is a tackle in this league for sure, either side. But then he's got the little bit of nastiness in him. You look at the guy, he's baby-faced, he's very nice. But on the field, he's a guy I want to block next to. So I think he was a solid pick. You obviously get the value of a tackle. Guy that Ryan Pohl's obviously liked, the Boston College connection. I think this is a good pick. And I think this is a guy that can compete to be in that starting lineup this year with Braxton Jones. And you alluded to it. When you're missing, this guy, Braxton's not going to be there for any of the OTAs and the mini camps. Huge. You're getting these reps with the ones. And then Dan Rochar. I've seen Dan Rochar working in an offensive line room. He's going to get him right. And I think he's a perfect developmental prospect, a guy that Dan Rochar can really coach up even to play early this season.
It's going to be probably one of the more fascinating training camp storylines is watching the tackles. I think that's sort of maybe one of the bigger mysteries on this roster in this moment is who's going to be the week 1 starting left tackle for the Chicago Bears.
Sorry, that was just after. Finish your thought? I got the Christian.
Oh, Christian, what is it?
It's Christian Mahogany.
There we go.
Right guard for the Detroit Lions. So another NFL player. So basically, Boston College knew they had 2 NFL players. Let's put these guys together. But I'm sorry, I looked that up. That was going to bother you all
day. Yeah, that was going to bother you. We know. It's all good. All good. All right, guys, let's move this thing along here. We got a lot to get to. Second round, 62nd pick, Shemar Turner, the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. You Google him, search him on Twitter. The first thing that comes up is the penalties and the lack of discipline on the field. Then you go and you listen to him on Zoom that night, won everyone over. I mean, this guy was so elated in the moment and so grateful. So, there was just he won the press conference, I would say, in that moment. And he talks about the violence that he plays with and the way that he wants to approach the game and kill when he's on the field. And he knows that there is a fine line between, stepping over that boundary. And I think this is going to be a coaching staff that is not going to put up with that. And I think that's why it's a good situation for other players that have dealt with similar issues, a la Tyreek Stevenson. I think this is a coaching staff that's going to really sort of hone in on the discipline while also letting players toe that line. That's sort of the vibe that I think we're all sort of gathering here. I want to know what your guys' reaction was to the Shemar Turner pick. I think there's a lot to unpack here, but you like the way that he plays, just don't cross that line, right? Like, I think that's sort of the overarching theme here. Clay, why don't you break this one down for us first?
Yeah, Shemar Turner, the first thing that jumps out to me is his position versatility. He's obviously lined up at some edge. He's lined up at nose. He's lined up at 3-tech, 4-eye. So he can play all across that defensive line. You put him out there with Dio Dangbo, Grady Jarrett, Montez Sweat. A lot of these guys got some position versatility. I think that's something that Dennis Allen really appreciates and likes and values. So you can line him up in a lot of different spots. I think he is very, very active. This guy is one of those guys that's just got a motor, Energizer Bunny, just keeps going and going and going and going. I think he's a little undersized on the inside in the run game. He's going to have to gain some weight. He's a young guy, and I think he can do that. Coming from edge to playing on the inside, he's got some weight to put on. I think sometimes his pad leverage gets a little too high. But, overall with a guy with his mentality, he's going to be a guy that you're betting on to work, that you're going to be able to coach up with his pad level. And I think it's a solid pick. He plays with that mentality, a chip on his shoulder, a tone setter that you want on the defensive line. So I do like this pick. Didn't have a ton of production, but overall, I think this guy's going to be a player.
Yeah, here's the other thing with Shemar Turner is similar to Ozzy Trapilo. Team guy, did what it was required of him at Texas A&M when he moved inside. He was an edge guy. Texas A&M says, we want to move you inside. What does he do? He puts on 30 pounds to make sure that he can get that done. That's a hard thing to do, put on 30 pounds in a year, I think, to get that done. And yes, Clay, you said he could probably put on more weight. He acknowledged that as well. He's like, listen, I'm still on my weight gain journey. So he has a ways to go, but underwent that body transformation. And then tough as nails. This is a guy who was really plagued by stress fractures in his legs last season, and basically admitted, like, yeah, it was really hard. It really hurt, but I was okay to play. So he gritted it and he played through the pain to the point he actually had to have a rod inserted in his leg to help them heal all the way. So this is a guy who is not going to miss games just because it hurts. Medically cleared. I'm okay to go. I'm going out there. I'm gritting my teeth and I'm doing that. That's huge. Obviously, that is huge. That toughness, that's something you can't teach. So there's that piece. You mentioned the discipline. That's another thing. I mentioned the challenge of how do the Bears keep all of these playmakers engaged when they might go a few games without getting the rock as much as they want. How are the Bears going to help him find that line? How are the Bears going to help him play right there to the edge of getting a personal foul without going too far? That's on the coaches now. But if they can help him find that line, you can see him being a developmental guy, right? Is he going to start right away? Probably not, because you have Andrew Billings, you have Jervon Dexter, you have Grady Jarrett. But Grady Jarrett, we expect him to contribute this year, maybe next year, but how much longer does he got? Andrew Billings, I believe in a contract year, what does he look like after the pec injury? It gives you a little bit of a next man up opportunity for next season. As these guys get older, now you have the next crop of defensive tackles, whether he fits better at nose, whether he fits better at 3 tech. I think that is to be determined. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him out on the edge a little bit, to be quite honest. You mentioned the positional versatility. And then one more thing, I had it, but I lost it with Jervon Dexter of it all. This is another part of why I think he's maybe a little bit more of a project. Bears acknowledge that he might have to go through the same transition that Jervon Dexter had to go to. A&M, a little bit more of a 2-gapper. Here, it's more pin your nose back, 1 gap, just disrupt. So it's great that the Bears have Jervon Dexter, who went through this. Now, Shemar Turner has the opportunity to learn from a guy like Jervon. Hey, you were a 2-gapper at Florida, and now the Bears are asking you to do something different. It's a bit of a transition, right? The read and react, maybe catching guys rather than just attack. So he might not be, again, starter right away, but a little bit of a project. You love all the intangibles. You love the motor. You love the mentality.
All right, so we continue our little defensive run here. The Bears in the 4th round, we're moving on to day 3 now. In the 4th round, pick 132, the Bears take Ruben Hyppolite. Did I say that correctly? Hyppolite? The linebacker out of Maryland. What can you tell us about this player, Alex?
So Ruben Hyppolite, this is a guy who really the speed is the big thing. That's the thing that jumps off the chart. He was not a combine invite this year, but at his Maryland Pro Day, his Maryland Terrapin, he ran a 4.42 40-yard dash. And if he had been at the combine, that would have been the fastest 40-yard dash among all linebackers. Bears say it's not just the speed, though. They really like his instincts. So that'll be interesting. He's also a guy who plays teams and should be a core special teamer. Where he fits in on the defense, though, the Bears said basically we see him in the middle, maybe Mike or Will. But the thing is, you got Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, who just signed to a long-term deal. So maybe his quickest path to the field right now is Sam and Dennis Allen. When the Bears, moved on from Jack Sanborn, when we had our little roundtable discussions, basically said, listen, we want to get more athletic. We want to get faster on defense. We did a good job getting better. Now it's time for us to get faster and more athletic. Ruben Hyppolite helps them get faster and more athletic, even if, his quickest path to the field is playing Sam.
No, yeah, I think you nailed it there, Alex, is speed. And his production for the type of athlete he is, I think, was maybe a little bit down, but Dennis Allen and this Bears defense wanted to get faster. That's why people say, okay, why would you get rid of Jack Sanborn, and then draft a guy in the 4th round? Is this too high, the 4th round for this pick? In my opinion, a bit too high to take this guy. Hyppolite is watching his film. He's physical. Like you said, I think he'd be better suited for a will linebacker position. Uses athleticism to guard tight ends, to guard receivers when he has to. I think that's where he would fit in instead of playing middle like he did in Maryland. But you get to see he's instinctive guy, shows flashes, explosive pop, wraps up well, everything you want to see in a linebacker. And, you can't teach speed. This guy's fast. He's fast to the ball. And I think when you're pairing him with the Bears linebacking core, he fits in. But you also will get a core 4 special teams guy. And I think with the new kickoff rule and obviously how important of an emphasis they're placing on that, the special teams game, that's where you're going to see a lot of value from him right away.
Moving on to the 5th round, pick 169, Zah Frazier, the cornerback out of UTSA. This is, or I guess I should say DB. This is another really interesting pick and some good stories around it, Alex. This is the Al Harris guy, right? This is Al Harris's prospect. Am I correct there?
You would imagine.
Yeah.
So I thought it was Zah as well. He actually corrected us on Zoom. Zay Frazier. Yeah. I
apologize.
No, it's not your fault. We were all making the same mistake in the media room until he was like, hold up, it's Zay. So that was that. He's really big and really fast. And another guy, interesting journey to the NFL, like had to go through a lot really to make it to the league. And we know Ryan Poles likes those type of players that had, have already shown they can make it through adversity. So he started at SIU. Then he goes to JUCO. Misses a year for academic reasons. Missed or maybe not a full year. I think 8 games. So he missed a handful of time didn't have the grades to play. And then he goes to UTSA. So 3 stops, plays through a lot. And again, like I said, to me, I'll let Clay break down the tape. It's just traits. He's really, really big, really, really long. So that's the stuff you can't teach. And Al Harris gets his hands on him. We'll see what Al Harris can do. They really like his ability to impress man, which is what we expect the Bears to do a good amount of. So to me, this just turns up the heat a little bit on Tyreek Stevenson, turns up the heat a little bit on Terrell Smith. Do I think he's going to be CB2 out the gate? No. But that competition at outside corner out next to Jalen Johnson, that got turned up a notch.
Yeah, Zay Frazier is an interesting prospect, in my opinion. Obviously, listening to the pressers, you find out that this is a guy that Al Harris pegged, and he said this is a guy that I think we could really get a good press man corner, long guy. I think we could get him in the 4th or the 5th round. Telling that to Ryan Poles. So obviously, Al Harris is really happy about this pick. 6th-year player. So you see that he's going to be 25 by the time that the season starts next year. So that's maybe a little concerning. Maybe his ceiling isn't as high because he is an older prospect, JUCO. But look at some of the numbers. 35 passer rating when targeted, 81-inch wingspan. I mean, that is long. This guy is fast. 4.36 is what he ran at the pro day. But then you look at his man-to-man coverage. Per PFF, 13% of his snaps were in man-to-man coverage. He only graded out at 60. Watching the tape, guy makes plays. You see him make interceptions. He's very long, which is harder for these big cornerbacks in tight man-to-man coverage. So I think he's got some work to do in man, and I know Dennis Allen runs more man than most teams. He's a guy that's going to be able to get his hands on you, though, jam you, press you at the line, reroute receivers, which really throws off timing, and that's huge in the NFL. Even if you're in zone, you got a guy that can press and just throw a receiver off of his position, and then you drop in your zone, and that's what he brings there. Freak athlete. I think you're, once again, betting on a lot of traits right here. An interesting story, like you alluded to, Alex, going to Coffeyville Community College, all the way back to UTSA, and then obviously to the NFL. So Al Harris saw something in this guy, so you got to trust your defensive back coach that he thinks this is a guy I can work with, I can develop. And when you look at his what he's able to do with that defensive backfield in Detroit, I mean, you got to trust this guy. I mean, they've been incredible. How they've with Branch, and some of those guys, how they've developed them. So I like him. A little long. Got to work on some man-to-man skills. Going to be great at press, but I think he's a guy that can develop, even though he is a little bit older, 25 years old. We all remember that with our receiver friend, Alex's best friend,
Velus Jones.
Velus Jones. I'm like, why is this not coming? Bayless Jones, your guy. So interesting pick. I think it's what Al Harris wanted. So I'm curious to see how this one works out.
Okay, moving into the 6th round, we go back to offense. On the offensive line, Luke Newman is a guard out of Michigan State. Alex or Clay, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah. Luke Newman, I like him. He's a versatile guy. He's also a guy that transferred up from lower level competition to play 1 year at Michigan State. He's a little bit older as well. I think when you look at him, he's very athletic. You look at his vertical jump, 35-inch vertical jump would have been second highest of offensive linemen at the combine. 29 bench press reps would have been 6th among players at the combine. You go back and I start looking at some film. I watch him at the East-West Shrine game, right? Just turning on some tape from there and seeing what he was able to do against some really good competition, and that's where he stood out. East-West Shrine game, he played all across that interior offensive line, was a former tackle, moves him inside because he's got 31-inch arms. He started every game in the last 4 seasons. So this guy's durable. That's something we love. We love a guy that's durable. He's not going to be on the bench. Good awareness. Here's my notes. Good awareness of threats and protection. You watch him against Mason Graham. Had a really good game against Mason Graham. Turned on that tape. Was very impressed there. Keeps a good base. When he's a left tackle for Holy Cross, he was solid there too. I don't know if that's something that they would try there if all heck broke loose and you needed to put a guy at tackle. But he does have 3 years of collegiate experience of playing left tackle. I see him as a guard, but I really do like this pick. And according to PFF, he did not allow a sack and only allowed 9 pressures last year. So guy that I think is versatile on the inside there, compete for a backup spot, played some left tackle, Michigan State, hard-nosed guy. So I like the pick.
Little bro, as we say at the U of M. All right, let's go to the 7th round. Last but not least, guys, Kyle Monangai. The Bears finally get their running back, pick 233 out of Rutgers. You guys were calling him a bowling ball before we went on. I like the sound of that, and there was so much conversation about the depth of this running back class and how deep into the draft you could get really quality, good running backs. This guy sounds like he's a perfect example of that. Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we didn't really talk about the trades. We've only talked about the players. And I think that was a storyline. All offseason, we have talked about how this is a stacked running back class. And you could see it playing out that right before the Bears would pick, time after time, running back goes, all of a sudden the Bears trade back. And Ryan Poles didn't even really hide that fact when asked about that. Like, hey, it seemed like running backs were going right before you and then you were trading back. And he was like, yeah, we kind of let the board talk to us. So Travion Henderson picked right before the Bears. Cam Scatterbo picked right before the Bears. I could go on and on and on about these guys picked before the Bears. They just keep kicking the can down the road. And what happens? They find a guy in the 7th round because this is such a great running back class who actually, when you watch, looks very, very interesting and does a lot of very cool things. Is this guy a home run hitter? No. Is he potentially the Knuckles? Like, it's Sonic and Knuckles was the thing in Detroit, right? DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery. Now, DeAndre Swift again, but who's going to be that Knuckles? Monangai could really, I think, compete to be that Knuckles dude. He's physical. He lowers his shoulder. Really fighting for extra yards. And the thing that stands out as well, pass pro. This guy is aggressive in pass pro. Like, he attacks blitzers. That's a great way to make your coaches very happy. That's a great way to get on the field and stay on the field. If you can protect your quarterback on 3rd down, that helps. So Kyle Monangai, and produced a lot too. I mean, Rutgers was a running offense, 5 years there. So he's played a lot of football, over 3,000 yards, bunch of touchdowns. So very, very intriguing running back prospect that the Bears let the board come to them. They get a guy who has a lot that you would like all the way in the 7th round.
Yeah, and he's a guy that's very dependable. 707 touches in his career. Guess how many times he fumbled the football? 0.
Goose egg.
0 fumbles. Okay, that's impressive, man. Unfortunately, I've had a couple fumbles in my day, and it's a very lonely feeling when you're walking back to the sidelines and you just coughed up the football. Okay, the whole stadium's booing you. The coaches are looking at you like they want to come out and tackle you on the field. You think you're safe on the sidelines? No, you're going to get tackled by your coaches after you fumble the football. But this guy doesn't fumble. Alex alluded to it, over 3,000 yards in his career, back-to-back 1,200-yard rushing years for him. When you turn on the tape, exceptional contact balance. No, we've talked about that. A guy that's stacked low to the ground, breaks a ton of tackles, absorbs hits without losing momentum. A guy that can just keep his pad level low, almost looks like he's on the ground, but he's still going somehow. Change of direction is actually really good. Unpredictable, sharp cuts. I know he only runs a 4.6, and I think that's one of the reasons he falls, besides his height. But you never really see him get caught, and I think he's fast enough. Like we've said, you look at David Montgomery. He was a 4.6 guy. Nobody's complaining about what he's doing over there in Detroit and when he was in Chicago. One downside is in his career, he only has 38 catches, very limited route tree from what I saw. So he's not going to be a guy that's going to go out there and catch the football, but that's where you get your Sonic and Knuckles. You got a guy in DeAndre Swift that can catch the football and run a lot of those routes. But Alex also alluded to really good in pass pro. So it's maybe one of those guys, instead of putting him in on the route, you're keeping him in pass pro. But love this pick. Exceptional runner. I'm surprised he was there in the 7th round. I really like the upside from Monangai.
Yeah, I think I heard from someone who's really familiar with the position, like if he was 2 or 3 inches taller, he would have gone in the 3rd, 4th round. So I think this is someone who's, and that's obviously saying a lot in this really deep running back class. So I think there's a lot to like about that pick. And I'm very, I guess quickly, guys, here, because we are coming up against the time here. I just want to know, like, overall, what's your overarching, like, gut feeling about this draft class? Obviously, I'm in the camp where it's like, ask me in 3 years. Okay. Like, that's really where I sit. But I want to know how you guys feel about it just quickly before we wrap this thing up. And then I think on our Wednesday episode, we'll talk more about, like, what this means moving forward. Where are the biggest holes? But I want to know, just from the weekend, how do you feel? Did the Bears get better? Clay?
Yeah, I think they got a lot better. And you said it. You remember when the Detroit Lions had a draft class and people were laughing at them, saying it's a terrible class. A couple years later, the best class in the entire draft that year. So I think this is a solid class. I'll give them, if it was a grade, and I don't like these grades right after the draft because you don't know. But right now, knowing what we know, I think it's a solid class, a B plus maybe. You got some big playmakers. I think you got some defensive linemen and offensive linemen that can be players that make an impact for you. Monangai is a 7th-round pick, but I think he's a guy that you will see get a number of touches this year. So overall, the way the board fell, you can't do nothing about that. Obviously, you can manipulate it as much as you can, but I think maybe they missed on a couple of the early running backs. They made up for it with Monangai, getting what they could there with great value. Overall, getting a playmaker like Loveland, I think it was a good class.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, solid. They increased the talent. They increased the competition. They increased the depth. Excuse me, the depth. Ooh. If I was to, I'm aspirating on coffee. If I was to nitpick, I think there were opportunities to add edge rushers. And this is become a little bit of a trend for Ryan Poles. I know they added Dayo Dangbo, but I think, consensus was, hey, there's work to be done on the edges. They add Shemar Turner, who is a DT, can play on the edge. So we'll see if he factors in there at all, but he's a DT, right? Since Ryan Poles took this thing over, I'm pretty sure he's only drafted 2 edge rushers now. Dominique Robinson, later pick, and Austin Booker, a developmental pick. So it's a little bit of a thing, right? I'm not gonna hammer him, but I think it's worth noting. It's worth noting that, okay, as the years go on, they haven't invested a ton. They finally invested on the offensive lines. We've seen that. 1st-round pick last year, or 2 years ago, and now 2nd-round pick with Ozzy Trapilo. But defensive line with the defensive edges, only the 2 picks in Dominique Robinson and Austin Booker. So maybe you're not going to fill every hole. You're not going to fill every hole in the offseason. But that to me is a moment where I was like, didn't address that one. And that seemed like a pretty big opportunity.
All right, really good stuff, guys. I am excited to dive deeper into this on Wednesday with both of you. I think we have a lot still to get to, and we can dive deeper into those, where did they hit? Where did they miss? What we could look at those trades even closer. I think there's a lot to sort of dive into as we look closer into this draft class. But holy smokes, we're off and running. This roster is kind of coming together, and it's very exciting. I think there, once again, are very high expectations for Ben Johnson and what he's going to do with all these picks, because I think it's pretty clear that this was a Ben Johnson-led draft. This was a draft where Ryan Poles said, hey, what do you need to be successful? And if that meant it was taking a tight end at number 10 overall, who some people deemed the second best tight end in the draft, Ben Johnson said, I want my Sam Laporta. I want my, my slot receiver. I want people that are going to be able to help this team for a long time, because we all know Ben Johnson isn't going anywhere for the foreseeable future. So let's dive deeper into this on Wednesday. And you fellas have a great day. Clay, I'll see you later today for the Big Pro Football Show. Alex, you go hit that golf course. You earned it, my friend. Okay. Good stuff, fellas. Alex Shapiro, Clay Harbor. I'm Ruthie Polinsky. This is the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. We'll see you guys later this week.